One of the things that this talks about is that about 45% of our general population has this non-alcohol related fatty liver disease. And there's a lot of research that is showing that it is indeed related to metabolic syndrome, related to diet. And he once again reminds us that 88% of Americans have some level of metabolic dysfunction that probably has gone on unrecognized. Hi, I'm Susan Ballou. Welcome to Life Health Rewritten, my video blog where I'm inviting you along on my journey to weight loss and escape from food addiction and emotional eating. None of this is meant as medical advice. It's just simply information that I'm sharing about my story, as well as information that I've learned along the way as to why some things might work for me and other things don't. So sit back and enjoy. Welcome to episode number 4 of my Friday video blogs for Life Health Rewritten. I am glad to have you join me again today. In this episode, we're going to continue on with what we started last week. And what I want to do this time is kind of hone in on one specific focus for this. So we are primarily going to be focusing on Dr. Robert Lustig's Metabolical, The Lure and the Lies of Processed Food and Nutrition and Modern Medicine. And then we'll continue to pull in some of the other resources that we've talked about. There's Dr. Jason Fung's Obesity Code, where he talks about the same topic as well. But just for keeping things kind of a little bit short, this is a pretty huge topic. And so I'm going to break things down little by little. So today, I just wanted to talk a little bit about one of the signs of inflammation that is called non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. And the reason that I think that it's so important is there's a lot of people suffering with it. And there is just one of those top inflammatory processes that they are starting to really connect with our food sources. So I just wanted to bring that forward and talk a little bit about it today. Had the opportunity this week to chat with a friend, and we were comparing notes from somewhat similar backgrounds. The familial Midwest diet, we're both kind of related to each other on loving bread and, meat and potatoes and just all the yummy things. No matter where you're at, there's certain diets in the area that, you might be more familiar with or might be more normal for a person to have. It was interesting because she had heard my story about being that chubby kid, and we always had lots of yummy treats and things like that. And she was they had a lot of treats, but she was the kid that could eat pretty much anything and not have problems with being overweight. And so it kind of has come as a surprise to her as she's progressed through life. And she and I are similar ages, and our her symptoms have been very similar in what we've dealt with symptoms of inflammation. And she just kind of went through and we compared notes. And one of the things that I have found that was similar to her is, I'll do fine for a while, clean everything up, and then maybe decide, oh, it's vacation. Even on this last weekend, I kind of just relaxed a little bit, had a few days of, there were times when I just said no, and it was super, super hard. And that's something that I want to cover a little bit later is just the difficulty with all the things that are tied into food and the importance of it and memories. And it's not just it's not just taking one bite. It is a whole bunch of things. But that's for a different day. We'll talk a little bit about that at another time. For today, I just want to kind of talk about what happens to me, what my symptoms are if I have just a couple of days of eating things with too many grains, which break down into sugar. And, um, if I do have sugar, I really get to the point where I feel so terrible that I limit myself quite a bit to just out and out sugar. And if I have too much wheat, which of course, some of my favorite things in this world are made out of it, I have so many problems with just immediately, like I will have reflux all night, just terribly, or at least severe heartburn and things like that. But some of the more subtle things, like headaches. the whole time I'm doing this. And I rarely ever have headaches anymore unless I've sat hunched over the computer and then there's a tension, for my neck, that type of thing. But as far as just this underlying headache that just won't go away when I go back to eating grains pretty much of any kind, I really notice it. And then swelling. And that's one of the things that she had talked about as well, as starting to notice, oh, swelling and pain, like in the feet, ankles, that type of thing, thinking that maybe there was something wrong, and then just finding out, no, it's from arthritis, and then cleaning up the diet and it goes away. And so one of the things that she was talking about is that she actually, with throughout all of this process, has started developing issues with like the non-alcoholic fatty liver. And sometimes you'll get these weird symptoms for things, and then for whatever reason they do lab work and they find out, oh yeah, there's issues with that. And then clean up the diet, goes away. And you do okay, but then there's what my friend that I used to work with called normative drift. Pretty soon you start doing the stuff again, and then the symptoms start inching back. And so it's very interesting to learn about all of this. So as I was going through taking a listen to some other areas in the metabolical book, Dr. Lustig's, I really kind of drilled down to a little bit more of the why. Now, some of it is very, very scientific. And then it goes on though, and goes into more layman's terms of things and kind of covers the different conditions that really are related to diet, and references, absolutely great references. So if for anyone that's just interested even in seeing, okay, what kind of references does he have? It's called metabolical.com without all the rest of the title. Is you can go in there and there's information, and you may have to give an email address to get access. I don't remember, but every chapter has a list of references. And so it's got all of the books and the journal articles and all of the different things. So this is not just somebody's opinion. This is a deep dive into the various studies, and it has the different, whether it's a meta-analysis, which is kind of comparison of all of the different, a compilation of all of the different research or what it is, but there are lists. And so he's done a very good job of dotting his I's and crossing his T's. It's not just, oh, I think this is going on, or anecdotal or little stories or whatever. It's very supported, which is helpful, especially for someone like me, who really has that sciencey background of and wants to dive deep. But of course, I don't want to be like, oh, you're giving medical advice that isn't real. No, I'm just reporting, here's my symptoms. Here's my N of one, which is a statistical term. My study on me. Here's what I have found. And then lo and behold, I'm talking to this person and she's got almost the identical thing now in life, but coming from a similar food background, but not coming from a background of heavy obesity all of her life, but now at kind of a similar place in life. So I found it fascinating. And like I said, going through later on, I really do want to talk about all of the components of why it's so hard to stop eating this stuff. Why is it that my face loves it and the rest of my body says, ugh? Well, go back to one of the things, the reason my body says, ugh, is some of the stuff like we talked about causes that deterioration of the lining of the gut, and then causes the leaking and all of that, which of course that's going to create some issues. But there's some other interesting things that his book talks about, and some of it is such, I will go more into it even in more depth probably next time, but this time I want to kind of keep it high level, just surface level pretty much. So one of the things that this talks about is that about 45% of our general population has this non-alcohol related fatty liver disease. And there's a lot of research that is showing that it is indeed related to metabolic syndrome, related to diet, not necessarily wonderful treatments, like not a lot of medications for it that really treat it. And he once again reminds us that 88% of Americans have some level of metabolic dysfunction that probably has gone on unrecognized. So it's interesting. One of the things that he talks about, which I found fascinating in here, is what he refers to as epigenetics. Now, this is not just only related to fatty liver. This is related to all of the other kinds of issues. It's related to the insulin resistance, which then can cause metabolic syndrome and then go on into some of these other conditions, whether it's fatty liver or some of the others that we'll be talking about over the next few weeks that he really covers nicely. But epigenetics has to do with a little bit of what I was talking about last week. You remember me telling you that when I talked to the doctor about my situation with my legs, was it genetic related? And he said it was lifestyle related. Well, this book goes into the science of that more, which, of course, to me, immediately, my ears perked up as soon as I heard this because I was like, oh, well, there's a lot of the explanation. So what he talks about is if you have a mom who's, of course, an obese mom and having poor diet, eating a lot of sugar, carbs, all of this stuff, then what happens with that, with the fetus inside, it actually raises inflammation risks for the baby. And they've been able to even measure that there is reduced insulin sensitivity in the umbilical cord. So they've done some measurements on all of this to really see this. And they've talked about the fact that the maternal metabolic syndrome, if mom has that, can impact what's called mitochondrial dysfunction. Now, the mitochondria is it's another huge deep dive in science. I'm not going to go into a bunch of it, but it's all cellular related. It's what makes us up. It's kind of our structure of stuff, and it can impact up to 3 generations if there's dysfunction in it. And that was fascinating. A little sad to me because it tells me that my propensity for in one pregnancy for hot fudge sundaes an awfully lot probably, yeah, did not help. And then the other one was a lot of just sun chips and grains and pop and things like that. And I'm sure that did not help either. So you look at it, you want to talk maternal guilt. Okay, sign me up. But anyway, live and learn and hopefully help the generations moving forward understand and learn. One of the things that it also talks about, though, is that they found in studies that if a mom had obesity and the poor diet during one pregnancy, then had bariatric surgery and cleaned up the diet before a subsequent pregnancy, that they didn't see the same damage and the same mitochondrial issues for that child born after that. So that was also very interesting and very telling. So one of the things that Dr. Lustig really, really emphasizes, and I think I've talked about before in my other episodes, he is not one that is a proponent for a specific, like, you must do low carb or you must do, carnivore or you must do vegetarian or whatever. His focus is we have a processed food pandemic. We're used to that word right now, but it's a global issue with processed foods. And he's really, really serious about that a lot of this issue is related to processed foods and sugars are involved in that. A lot of the processed foods have sugar as a flavor enhancer, but just the way things are packaged and processed and treated and the ingredients and so he said, with all of these, no matter what a person does, there needs to be a change to more whole foods and clean foods, whatever it is. And I know I've thought about that in the past because I've had acquaintances that were, very vegetarian, but maybe really high levels of pastas and things like that and a lot of processed foods, not really super healthy, and a lot of obesity issues, even as vegetarians. Where other people that might be very clean, I'm just vegetarian and I get my proteins this way and really paying attention to being sure that they get all of the nutrients they need without a bunch of processed food might do better. But everybody has kind of their own thing that works best for them. The main thing is just really, really paying attention to the things like the high sugars and the processed foods that hurt a person. So now for me, I have already discovered that grains that don't work for me. Grains, my body, for whatever reason, I gain weight on them. I have a lot of trouble with them. Now, there might be other people that don't have that at all. They may have more trouble with, say, red meat. I am one of these people that I feel the most healthy if my diet primarily is red meat and my lab work stays the same. And so that's why in all of my, like in my health and wellness coaching, I am not one that is going to say you should always eat just this. No, because everybody's body is different. And what I do propose to people though is that you should start paying attention to what does your body tell you. When I eat this food, it does this, 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 and this to me. It's giving me a message. And so that's what I feel like is even more important. But clean whole foods as much as you can is also super important along with that, no matter which direction you find that you need to go. Now, in Dr. Lustig's book, he talks about one of the leading indicators that shows metabolic disorder is waist circumference. And of course, I started out obese and so my waist circumference is going to be higher than someone who is maybe the TOFI, but measuring your waist circumference in comparison. So one of the things that I have noticed when I eat the way I'm supposed to, even I can tell that I'm doing well. And even before it really starts catching up on the scales, my waist goes down, my waist size. When I misbehave, my waist size goes up. And he talks about that. And I'm not going to go into tons of the science again in here, but he talks about that and gives some of the scientific reason for that and why it happens so fast. And it has to do with kind of that inflammatory process and some oxygenated radicals, I believe is what he said. We've all heard the talks about the free radicals and all of that kind of thing. Oxidative radicals. And so overall, little by little, we'll dive a little bit more into different things. But I just wanted to kind of cover this primary issue with this non-alcoholic fatty liver and talk about the increase that we have within adults and adolescents, becoming a very huge situation with children and adolescents as well. And it can cause severe liver damage. And so as we're going to finish up today, I want you to kind of, let's start really thinking about what is my body telling me? Yeah, I love sugar, or yeah, I love grains, or, processed foods. It's so much easier, fast food, or whatever. Think it's worth really, really paying attention to what are my symptoms. I go on a weekend and I come back with swollen feet. Maybe it isn't just because I was sitting in a car for too long. What did I eat? If I never have headaches anymore, and I come back from my trip and I realized I've had to take Tylenol twice a day for the whole time I was gone, what did I eat? If I, have reflux or all of the other things, all of the other symptoms, what has my food been? Now, it's harder when you're going out to eat and things like that, but especially if you go, oh, I'm on vacation. I'm just not going to worry about it. Definitely something to think about. So I hope that that's been interesting. Like I said, it's just kind of a quick overall discussion about one aspect of this, and we'll continue to talk more about it. As always, if you have any questions, if you have anything that you'd like to talk to me about, please reach out to me. It was great talking to this gal and kind of being able to compare notes, and I would love to do that with anybody else. If you're somebody that would like to participate on one of these video blogs, if you're somebody that's, not shy and like to get in here and have anything that you'd like to talk about with relationship to this, that would be great as well. Get a hold of me. But I hope that this has been helpful and entertaining. And once again, as always, it is not medical advice. It's just sharing my results, sharing my experiences, and then, of course, going over the research and resources that are starting to come out because, like, we really want to help people start being able to live their best life and, not have to worry about some of this and figure out which is more important, what tastes good or what feels good. So, have a great week.